Welcome back, broadcasting live once again from our secluded bunker on the west bank of the Halifax River. Welcome to the COVID Castle. I'm your pandemic professor, Scott Velasco. This is part 3, talking about spectrum effects, and today we're talking a little bit about EQ. So here we go. So now let's talk about the other half of spectrum effects. Filters are one big part, but the other part of spectrum effects are EQs, which you're probably even more familiar with, because when we talk about EQs, you've used these. In your car, you've got a knob that says bass and a knob that says treble. You turn those knobs and you generally know what happens. But we're going to look at EQ from a slightly different perspective. Your car, we'd call that a fixed frequency EQ, because you don't have control over anything other than I want more of this frequency band or I want less of this frequency band. But let's look at EQ with more control that we are afforded in the studio. So we'll go back to our session here. We're going to listen for the first time so far to our vocal. Let's check it out. And this vocal is untreated right now, so we have no effect, nothing on this vocal. It's just raw right into the microphone. Let's have a listen.
There's nothing like that feeling of excitement. Just take a breath, close your eyes, you'll feel it.
Yeah, you can hear what's going on there. And I'm going to put the default Pro Tools EQ on this track, and that is called the EQ3. And let's get a detail on that as well. Here we go. And you'll notice the EQ3 does have filters up here. It has a high-pass filter and a low-pass filter. We're going to ignore those for just a moment. If you use any one of the 5 bands that are presented in the EQ3, they say LF, that's low frequency, LMF, that's low mid-frequency, MF, that's mid-frequency, HMF, high mid-frequency, and HF is high frequency. If you use any one of those things, you have 3 controls for it. And let's talk about those 3 controls independently. The one that you're most familiar with is gain. That says I want more or less of that particular frequency band. But if I decide I want more of that mid-frequency, and right now that's centered around 1K, I can also say I don't want more 1K, I want more mid-frequency at 500 hertz. And this is one advantage of what we call a parametric equalizer, which gives us a lot more control than those fixed frequency equalizers you're used to using. So the parametric equalizer isn't just less or more of the frequency band, it is also what frequency do you want it to center around. So we've got that nice little center frequency, and that's represented by the dot in Pro Tools. But not only do we have a center frequency, for each band we have what's called the Q. And the Q is the bandwidth. It's how many of those surrounding frequencies are going to be affected when I raise or lower that center frequency. So let's watch this. I can say I want fewer surrounding frequencies affected when I raise or lower that center. Or I can say I want more surrounding frequencies affected when I raise or lower that center. We'd call that a low Q, and we'd call that a high Q. And we can adjust between these. So let's just take a moment and listen to this.
There's nothing like that feeling of excitement. Just take a breath, close your eyes, you'll feel it. It's something new to adore. Just take one step and explore the exciting world that's right in front of you. There's nothing like that feeling of excitement. Just take a breath, close your eyes, you'll feel it. It's something new to adore. Just take one step and explore the exciting world that's right in front of you.
So you can kind of see what happens there when we're sweeping through those bands. And all 5 of the bands on the EQ7 here give us that ability. All 5 give us 3 separate controls: gain, frequency, and Q. But in addition to that, your lowest and highest band allow us to adjust shape. And when I'm talking about shape, the easiest way to explain this is to show you. So let's go back to the EQ, and I'm just going to deal with my low band. There I am saying I want more. Here I am changing the Q. Here I am changing the frequency. But instead of this bell curve, which we would call a peak dip band, because we are peaking or dipping that frequency set, I can instead change this to what's called a shelf. And the shelf affects everything from a certain point on down. If we're talking about a low shelf, that would be a bass shelf. I can say I want more of all of that or less of all of that. And then I have a high shelf that would affect everything from that frequency all the way up through the top of the spectrum. So the top and bottom bands of the EQ37 band allow us to adjust their shape as well as gain, frequency, and Q. And so that's a lot of control that we suddenly have over what we are EQing. And that's the difference between a parametric equalizer and what we would call a fixed frequency equalizer like you see in your car. Yeah, and there's one more type of EQ that I want to talk about. It's what we'll call a graphic EQ. So let's head over to Pro Tools here and have a look. So here you see a graphic EQ. It's actually a type of fixed frequency equalizer, but instead of all of the frequencies being represented by knobs, they're represented by sliders that go from low frequency on the left-hand side up to high frequency on the right-hand side, which gives you the ability to sort of visualize the frequency spectrum, and that's why we call it graphic, right? You have a graphic representation. So let's listen one more time to that vocal we were just hearing and see if we can find where those offending frequencies live and maybe get rid of some of them and see if we can smooth this out.
There's nothing like that feeling of excitement. Just take a breath, close your eyes, you'll feel it. It's something new to adore. Just take one step and explore the exciting world that's right in front of you. Adrenaline pumping through your veins. I can't believe I'm here, this is insane. So much left I've got to do, so much still I've got to prove. Today's the day you're gonna be amazed.
And I think I like that a lot. I think I like the way that's coming along a lot. And again, that's just the raw vocal right out of the mic. Now we've added a little bit of EQ to it using that graphic equalizer. So this has covered two types of EQs, parametric and graphic. And we said graphic is a type of fixed frequency EQ. And that gets us through spectrum effects. So next time when we come back, we're going to do a series on amplitude effects. Those are our compressors, our limiters, our gates, those sort of things. I hope to see you then. Until then, it's time to bounce. This is Scott Velasco fading out.
It was a Tuesday